In the cathedral devoid of people, a figure could be seen still staring up at heavens. His chest pierced with a long red sword, which pinned it in place to the ground. He was the figure of Beller. Ironically, he looked just like what he had done to battle with Blue Wedges in the fourth game. Beller had died quite some time ago. No. In this place, the concept of death means nothing except that one has stopped thinking. And therefore, in a sense, Beller was not dead. After being defeated in a fight over the truth, he no longer had the strength to think of a way to resist. I guess so. I guess this is a good time as any for me to think about some stuff and say my thoughts. It is that time once again, folks, for us to sit around the campfire, sit around the table, and think for a little bit. Since things have calmed down now that the court has ended and such. So, yeah, I guess so. So right now I do have with me this book that I have mentioned in the past. It's called Crime on the Orient Express by Agatha Christie. I mentioned this up to this point about multiple truths being created by the end of it all. And the reason I've been thinking about it is, well, not necessarily because the game mentioned this like a bunch of times during the court about the truth that the world will know about Natsuki being the culprit and such, but also because of some stuff that has been, well, not necessarily established at the beginning of episode 5, more what it tried to say with the entire thing of Kienzo being alive and multiple people sharing on the same illusions, sharing on the same truth that Kienzo is alive, that Natsuki and the servant decided to go along with the idea of Kienzo being alive so that the rest of the family would not know, a.k.a. telling them the truth that Kienzo is still alive. It kind of reminded me of the Crime on Orient Express. And it kind of made me think more on what it entailed when it comes to creating like a truth that the world will know and the truth that the people involved in the story would only know, while the rest of the world would not. It kind of made me think of this, that when the world knows the truth that is created by the people involved in it, it's not really true. Because we as the readers, when we read that book, we know the actual truth of what happened. Or more like, no. More like we know the truth that has been told to us by the detective / the author. And it has been established as the real truth by the author, by the detective and such. And which has been agreed by the suspect / suspects that was actually the truth. So they decided, hey, let's go and create a different truth for the entire world, even though that's technically not true. So it made me think of the knock and the leather situation. And by the way, something that I'm going to be mentioning in a second right now, it may sound a little bit blasphemous, but hear me out. Like, this is one of the things that I've been thinking about. Like, I'm thinking that the red truths are not absolutes. Like, even the red truths and such. Like, there is no such thing as an absolute truth in that sense. So I've been thinking about the knock and letter, and I've mentioned some ideas in the past about how someone pretended to pick up the letter, like misdirection and stuff like that, and the possibility that there was no such thing as a knock in the first place. That maybe we had to question the events of the dining hall and such. So it kind of made me think that it is a similar situation to what I've been talking about when it comes to Crime on Orient Express and the Kinzo is alive being told by Natsuki and the servants. Maybe the people that were involved in that moment in the dining hall, the people that were in the dining hall, decided to create this truth about a witch being involved in this. And what we've seen, like in the dining hall, about with the knock and the letter and such, that was the truth that was decided by the people inside the dining hall, that was actually what happened. Like that's what the narration, that is what the narration told us at that point. Like what I've been looking at before as a magic claim, quote unquote, or an unreliable narration moment, can also be seen as a moment that was created by the people involved in that moment in the dining hall. And they were telling us that moment as if it was something true, in that sense, even though it may not have been. And red truths may be created in that sense to create that moment, to further empower that moment, to make us think that that moment was actually true with the red truths. Now, the red truths that were given by Ben Castell and the other magical beings while Erika was contemplating on that, it may have been red truths that were of the events that actually happened in that. But there can very well be red truths that were created by the humans involved in it that may not necessarily be true, that they are not absolutes. It's kind of like when I questioned before, like there were two moments before where I questioned the legitimacy of a red truth. I'm not talking about at the beginning when I was doubtful of the introduction of the red truth, if I can really trust Beatrice with her red truths and such, but it was when there were some red truths where it was described that somebody claimed that something had happened. It is true that somebody actually claimed that, because they actually said that. But it doesn't necessarily mean that what happened, of like what they actually claimed, has actually happened. That is actually true. It can be that what they actually claimed was actually false, even though it is true that they actually claimed that happened. It's a similar mentality as that. So my idea is that like that the red truths are not like absolutes, that they are also to be questioned depending on the person or the people involved in it that are telling. A reason why it kind of brings you to the mentality even more that what Ben Castell, what Erika, Lambda Delta, the magical beings involved in it, decided to create this truth about Natsuki being the culprit, even though it's not necessarily true. However, they created that moment because that's what they wanted to tell us. They wanted us to accept it as truth, even though it's not. It's like my idea of a truth is that a truth is a truth when somebody accepts it as a truth. Whether it is true or not, it doesn't matter. It's kind of like the Earth is round thing. Now we have the technology and all to say that, oh, the planet is actually round. Even though before, we all thought that Earth is flat. At that point, we accepted it as truth. However, like after a while, we decided on the truth that the Earth is round. Truths preceding truths. In that sense, the truth that was before that Earth is flat is not actually absolute in that sense. So does this mean that we can say that the Earth being round is actually the absolute truth? I mean, maybe there's going to be some new truth in the future that is going to tell us that, I don't know, like, Earth is not necessarily completely round, or maybe if we are to talk about dimensions and such, whatever the case is. It kind of made me think of that, because when you think of Erika, she has done a lot of crazy stuff in the game world that would empower the idea of Natsui being the culprit. Like, she's done so much stuff, like, to investigate, and yet she knew jack shit about the events of the dining hall. Why? It is because, well, it's not just because Erika was not inside the dining hall, therefore she couldn't have known what had happened in the dining hall. Like, if she tried hard enough, she would have known what had transpired in the dining hall. But it's more like, metaphorically speaking, it's kind of like Erika not being in that same shared illusion of the people inside the dining hall. She couldn't have been, because, well, why would the people involved in the dining hall allow Erika to be in on the plan and such? They wouldn't allow her to be in on the same illusion. Like, the idea is that it's about sharing the same illusion and accepting something as truth. Erika, Ben Castello, and Lambda Delta were in on some truth, while the people in the dining hall were in on some different truth that Erika was not aware of at that point. So, what does that tell me? It tells me that the red truths are not absolutes. Now, am I actually gonna go with that kind of idea? In which case, it kind of makes me question what we have seen in the past. For example, the red webs. Like, maybe it was wrong of me to think of it the way I did before, because the way I tackled the red web, it was basically me trying to squeeze my way through it in order to find a solution of what actually happened. That was not actually a witch or something. And I saw the red, I see the red truth now as sort of like a microcosm of what actually transpired in the court. Because, my god, have you seen the amount of red truths that we gotten in the court? It's insane. So maybe keep in mind, this is one of the ideas that I've been thinking about. I'm not necessarily going with that kind of idea yet about the red truths and such, but if I'm to think of a completely new way of tackling the red truths, maybe similarly I have to go with the red web. Like, who knows? Maybe in the end, it could very well be true that either Beller, Eva, or Jessica could have done it. Because what had transpired there with the red web and such, it was a truth that was created by Eva to the entire world. Like, the entire world would know about these red truths, that they accepted it as fact. That would tell us that, hey, a witch actually did it. Maybe that's one way of looking at it. But okay, this is a completely like a completely out there idea of looking at it. And this would be one way of looking at what the Virgilia and Berle were trying to do about creating a different truth and such. And I was trying to see about how to tackle the red web and such. Reason why I've been thinking about this entire thing that came out of my mind, that some of you may think of it as me going cuckoo and such. So I've also been thinking about this other way of looking at things. it could very well be that the difference in what Bella was supposed to do about creating this different truth, it is just a matter of, like, it is a difference in how you tackle the murder mystery. Because what did we see when Bella was trying to tackle the mystery in the court and such? He was basically shooting blindly with his gun, where what he was supposed to do was think methodically, think of the whole context, think of like what had transpired in the game thus far, and create like an idea of sorts. It's like, it's kind of like the difference between the way Beller tackled the court here versus Peace Beller tackling the study room. There is like a huge difference. And it can very well be that what they meant by creating a different truth, they meant that you're supposed to tackle it in a very methodical, very calm way, like in similar fashion to Peace Beller in the study room. Because the way Peace Beller tackled the study room incident, that was that is like a classic detective on an armchair moment, like at the end of a story where the detective pieces everything together and explains their reasoning in the most like the smoothest way possible, with no wiggle room of sorts and such. So is that what it means to create a different truth? To basically think like a hero detective in a story, to be calm and go all the way and tackle it in a very calm manner, like look at everything, look at the context, and then create an idea with everything that has transpired, with every clue imaginable, instead of just shooting randomly at the red truths and maybe some possibility would come out of that? Is that what it means to create a different truth? In which case, my god, these witches have like such a weird language when it comes to what they are doing actually here. If that's what it means to create a different truth. Which, it makes sense. We can still, well, in this case, in the second option, right over here, that I've discussed here, we can still go with the idea that the red truths are absolutes, I guess. But that would imply that we would also have to create a like a perfect, like smooth sequence, the way Peace Beller did in the study room. I don't know, like think like the culprit, think of everybody, think of every variable, and then create a line of story that in the end would coincide with the red truths that we have seen in the court, like smoothly. Like the way we tackle the mystery, it's not about tackling the red truths and see what we can come out of those. It's like the way we tackle the rest of the story that happened thus far, and see if we can come up with an idea that still perfectly fits the red truths, while making Natsui not be the culprit. Like I cannot say that I've ever managed to be that methodical in the past. Like in the past, I've managed to do some how-done-its by myself before trials, before the story, before the detective would actually tell their reasoning and such. I've managed to do some how-done-its in the past, but for me to manage something along the lines of what Ballard did in the study room, or any detective that you can think of, like Hercule Poirot or Sherlock Holmes, to do it before the story would reveal the solution by itself. For Umineko as well, that's a tall order. If you are to look at me, the person who is reading this, if I am to think about this. But I guess it is worth a shot. So, yeah, that was my pen right over here. So, how would I tackle this entire thing? Well, my mind keeps snapping at the mysterious man from 19 years ago, and I've given my ideas throughout the main game. I'm not gonna I'm gonna try to summarize the stuff as best as I can. I've been thinking about three people: Beller, Shannon, and Kanon. Like either Shannon or Kanon, or Kanon or Shannon, or just Kanon or Shannon, or both of them. Could be. Who knows? But I guess in retrospect, if I am to think about how an author would write their own story, like I have talked about this before about Natsuki being the mom of a battler, and given what we have learned at the end of episode 4 about battler not being as not being Asumu's son and such, it kind of makes sense that we would be going in that direction where we would question Natsuhi as the mother of Beller, because this entire thing, like about the mysterious man, has been talking about a baby. So it kind of makes you question: did Natsuhi actually do the boingy boingy with Rudolph, and Natsuhi gave birth to Beller? In which case, it doesn't really coincide with what Natsuhi confessed at the end of the episode there about killing the baby that was given by Kinzo. It doesn't really coincide there. It more or less coincides with the idea of that baby being Shannon or Kanon. Because if we are to think that that baby was actually Beller, then that would imply that Natsuhi actually gave birth to that baby. If we are to think of Natsuhi as the mother of Beller, because here's the thing: if we are to think of the Nox commandments, one of the Nox commandments says that the culprit has to be presented at the beginning of the story. You cannot just throw in like a random Joe Schmo like near the end of the story and say that that's actually the culprit. It would feel kind of cheap. And given that I know that you can actually solve Umineko in the first 4 episodes and such, I'm thinking that not only does this culprit have to be one of the humans or anybody that has been introduced early on, but the mother would also have to be known from the beginning. You cannot just. Maybe we can apply the same mentality as the Nox commandment. Because what, are we just gonna start thinking that with this whole mystery of Beller's mom and the whole baby thing, can we really say that Beller's true mother is some unknown mother that we are never gonna see? No, it could very well be that the mother is one of the people that has been introduced early on in the story. So it could be either Natsu, it could either be Rosa, it could either be Kiri or Eva or such. So I guess in that sense, it makes it seem logical why my mind would gravitate towards the idea that Natsu would be the mother, especially with this whole talk about the baby and such. But in that case, can it either be that what she confessed to was a lie, that Kinzo was not actually the person that gave her the baby, but it was actually that Natsuhi gave birth to Beller and then decided to kill that baby by throwing that baby out the cliff with the servant and all that? Or it can be that that baby is not Beller, but it can actually be like Shannon or Kanon. However, it can be that Natsuki gave birth to Beller, like, afterwards. She gave birth to Beller, who knows, maybe Natsuki gave birth to Beller at the same time as Jessica. Because it has been established before that until Jessica, Natsuki could not give birth to any baby as such. Maybe it could have been that Natsuki gave birth to Beller like at the same time or after Jessica, like in a completely separate thing. Like, that would be a completely different sin that Natsuki would have at that point. I mean, basically, he was doing the boingy boingy with Rudolph behind Kraus. That would be a completely different story. Like, that would be a completely different sin that she's not telling us. So, yeah, it could very well be the idea of both Shannon and or Kanon being in cahoots with Beller to make Natsuki go through all of this and even confess in front of everyone. I mean, who knows? Maybe everyone is involved in this entire thing. Because it has been established that the adults were thinking, hey, maybe Natsuki is not being true to us about Kinzo being alive. So let's go to this family conference, this year's family conference. Go with a plan and see if we can make Natsuki confess about Kinzo's status and such. Maybe they talked to Beller about this. Or Beller and Shannon even talked to the rest of the adults, and there's this whole conspiracy like behind Natsuki about making her confess about the entire thing. Cause I remember the end of the episode right over there. Natsuki confessed everything and such, and then Beller went all, that's no good. That's no good at all. Like, zen dametaze. And from a reader's perspective, you can look at it as say, oh, there's still hope. Beller still hasn't given up yet. It's time for us to create that truth. But we could look at it as the story telling us that, uh-oh, there's a sudden twist. There's a sudden twist. It's kind of like, well, okay, I'm thinking about One Piece over here, but I'm not allowed to to talk about it. It's spoiler, of course, for those of you who are reading One Piece over here. But there was like a plot twist about. Yeah, it was sort of like a One Piece at some point in the current story, like in the current arc. There was like a detective story where somebody was actually an imposter, and at some point the imposter was actually revealed and such, and there were hints towards that in the past. So yeah, apparently One Piece managed to do like a mystery there with some hints in the past that would tell us who the imposter was. There was like well, not necessarily a murder mystery, but there was an imposter, there was a traitor and such, and there was this one moment where the traitor was all the traitor was actually revealed with like a very dark like a very dark moment of here, and it was actually me, I was the traitor and such. It kind of made me think of the end of the episode there, where Beller would start going all, no good, not goddamn good at all. And then Natsuki is all surprised and such. Like, you've seen her reaction and such. And afterwards, we don't actually see that because, of course, it's Umineko and such, it's a story and such, to make us feel suspenseful. And it's for the sake of creating suspense over here. But it could very well be that Beller would go all, aha, yeah, you see, it was actually me. I was the mysterious man from 19 years ago. Or there's gonna be some, like, whatever it is, there will be like some huge revelation that told us that Beller was in on this entire thing. Which would further empower the idea of Beller or Shannon or Kanon being in this entire thing about the mysterious man from 19 years ago. Maybe Beller was not 100% convinced, well, not necessarily convinced, but rather he was not satisfied with Natsuhi's answer. It could very well be that, okay, Natsuhi confessed about the incident 19 years ago about the baby falling off the cliff with a servant. But she did not tell the full story about the other baby, that being Beller, who was born out of Natsuhi because of the Rudolph. And they decided that, hey, that's not good, Natsuhi. You're supposed to tell the entire truth. What about me, Beller, your son? The one they actually gave birth to. Maybe, because of Rudolph over here. So, yeah. It is quite something, because there's also this thing that... I don't remember if I actually thought about this before, or this just came to me. But maybe that's why Rudolph wanted to talk to Beller before he died in episode 1. I mean, of course, there's also about... there's also the idea, like there's also that thing that Rudolph said about how I might actually die, which might go with my previous idea about how Shannon or Kanon is threatening the adults to do what she says, otherwise everybody's gonna die and such. But I'm talking about like some other possibility. That could be that maybe Rudolph wanted to talk to Beller and Kirie privately about Beller's mother. Maybe Rudolph wanted to come clean at that point about who Beller's mother truly is. Yeah, I mean, that could very well be a possibility there. Now, for the rest of the story, like, what does this entire thing tell me? Like, okay, maybe I've come up with some idea that there is an entire conspiracy behind Nazi, more than what we've actually seen. But what about the murders? That's something that I'm gonna be thinking about, like, in a little bit after I drink my water over here. I guess it's time for my break over here. I had been rambling for more than 35 minutes? Oh god, okay, yeah, I guess so. I do have some extra ideas that I wanna mention in regards to this whole thing. When it comes to giving birth to another baby, when it comes to Natsuhi giving birth to another baby, like, if she also gave birth to Beller and Natsuhi is the true mother of Beller, and the only way this would work without anybody knowing, it would be that Natsuhi gave birth to Beller at the same time as Jessica, because let's say that Jessica was born first. It would be quite noticeable if Natsuhi still had the baby afterwards, because, well, look at her stomach. Look at that big belly. Look at that big belly with another baby inside. So it kind of makes me think that either we're talking about Beller being born at the same time as Jessica, so that someone would quickly take baby Beller, from over there, just so nobody would notice that Natsuhi gave birth to 2 babies instead of 1. And then Kraus would only know about Natsuhi giving birth to Jessica alone, in that sense. So I guess there is that, but you know how... Okay, I don't know much about giving birth to babies and such, but the probabilities of Kraus doing the boingy boingy with Natsuhi and Rudolph doing the boingy boingy with Natsuhi and getting a baby from each of them and giving birth to both the babies at the same time? That's I don't know about you, but that sounds like astronomical probability over there. That's like 1 in quadrillion. Maybe. The only way something like this would happen is both the babies will come from the same father. Now that's more common for it to happen. So it kind of makes me think of this another dark possibility that it all came from Rudolph. If Rudolph truly is the father of Beller, like the biological father, and Nazi gave birth to both the babies at the same time, it kind of makes you think that Jessica is truly not the daughter of Kraus, that Kraus is not the biological father of Jessica. And that would imply that Jessica and Beller are actually brothers and sisters. That would surely be quite a scare for Kraus to find out, if he were to ever find out something like this. But yeah, that's the whole talk about the babies and such. So another thing that I have to talk about right over here is, like, once again about this whole conspiracy thing when it comes to Hideyoshi, because the court surely did not tackle that much of that topic. Like, the whole thing with Hideyoshi's murder is, well, more specifically, the discovery of Hideyoshi's body was weird. Like, we all remember episode 1, when the 6 bodies, like, they got discovered and such, and how much of a big deal it was at first when we discovered the bodies in the storage warehouse and such. Like, everybody cried. It took us such a long time to process that entire thing. And yet here, when we discovered the Hideyoshi's body in the room and we did our thing, it went so fast. Like, you know, it is so... it's very easy to miss such a feeling because we've been going through all these games for such a long time. It has become a routine at this point that we would discover the body and we would think about this stuff and then move on to the next scene and such. But realistically speaking, it doesn't really make sense. Like, I don't care. However, Lambda is controlling these pieces, I don't know, having these characters as hard as steel, not crying anymore after so much death has been going on and such. Like, no matter how a piece is being controlled, this is not natural. I should have seen a lot more of Beller crying his eyes out, but now in this game he's a lot more hard steel when it comes to this sort of stuff. Like, this is not human behavior if you are to compare this Beller from episode 5 and Beller from episode 1 or 2, for that matter. So it does add to the conspiracy thing in the sense that, like, we have the whole thing with Natsuki being sent to that room to hide in a closet that she was asked to do that by the mysterious man. And it just so happened that, hey, somebody died in that room, and Natsuki is going to be accused of Hideyoshi's murder. And there's also like, after Hideyoshi's body was discovered, when they opened the door and saw Hideyoshi's dead body, people were talking about the culprit and how they done it, like about the culprit being in the bathroom or not, removing the ceiling in the bathroom to escape or something like that, or like how the shutters and the door was closed, like the possibility of Stake going through the crack of the door. Like, how it was mentioned that this was a locked room murder mystery. Like, they were thinking about the culprit and how they done it. And yet, not once did they ever think about the possibility that the culprit was hiding, like in plain sight. Like, in the obviously looking hard to miss closet. They could have just checked just a second to do that. They checked the bathroom and, they checked the shutters to see that they are closed, and yet they didn't check the closet in the first place. Like, that is really weird, especially when Erika decided to check the closet and she was stopped by Beller. Yeah, it does add to the possibility that the humans here, especially Beller, they're acting weird in that sense. It's like they're acting more weird than realistic when it comes to discovering a body and such. Like, maybe, like, I've been thinking that maybe this was a plan that everyone thought of, like, before getting to Rokkenjima. Like, not just of getting Natsuhi and Kraus to confess about Kenzo's status, but to go through this whole thing and make Natsuhi be seen as the murderer to possibly lead to the point where Natsuhi would confess of Kenzo's status, maybe, and possible other sins that she may have committed in the past. Like, if we are to go with that kind of idea, maybe Hideyoshi did not die. I mean, did we have like any reds in the court that told us that Hideyoshi died or something like that? It was barely discussed. Like, Hideyoshi's murder was never discussed in the court. Like, no real truth whatsoever. Now, the problem with that kind of mentality is Eva, because she was probably the most convincing out of everyone. It truly felt like Eva truly looked and sounded as if she truly believed that her husband died, like in similar fashion to the other games, like episode 3 and such. She was as realistic as ever in comparison to the other humans and such. She was pretty damn convincing in that sense. So it kind of makes me think that somehow the humans have been planning this except Eva. That Eva was not in on this entire thing. That Hideyoshi would fake his death and such. And then when it was discovered that Hideyoshi is not dead, then Hideyoshi will come inside the room and say, "Hey guys, I am alive," and all that. Oh, sorry that I have been lying to you about my death, Eva. Wait, what are you gonna do with that bat? Why are you approaching me with that bat, with that spike bat? Oh, wait, what are you doing? Yes, and yeah, that is when Hideyoshi would truly die because of Eva and such. She would kill him with a spiked bat because she was lied to about Hideyoshi's death before that. But I don't know. There's also Erika in this, because I don't know. Maybe I'm misunderstanding the detective authority here, but he didn't say that she used it. Like, and that. When the discovery of Hideyoshi's murder happened. She didn't use the detective authority, otherwise, nobody could have stopped her from investigating that whole thing. Like, and find Nazi in the closet. Like, nobody would have stopped her. But at that point, she instead let the adults do their thing. And they would grab the corpse. Like, the adults would say that, "Hey, can you just let this one slide?" And then Erika is all, "Okay, you can do whatever." So, I don't know, like, it can very well be that she stopped using it when it was convenient for her, like at that point, because she didn't need it. I was thinking that maybe it was her prideful thing that, I don't need to investigate this room. It is pretty straightforward what actually happened. I don't need to investigate it. I can create my own reasoning like later without even investigating. I can just look at this room and just photograph it because she has like photographic memory and such, and she can analyze it in the parlor. She was being cocky at that point. Like, that's one way of looking at it. But at the same time, she was gonna reach for that closet until Bella stopped her. Which one is it? Just let it slide, or is she curious about the closet? Because if she was cocky and she knew what was happening over there, then why would she reach for the closet in the first place? If she was possibly thinking that somebody was hiding in the closet in the first place. Like, Erika's role in that entire thing is weird because, once again, I'm thinking that Erika was not in on the illusion that the humans were possibly creating with Natsuhi in the closet and Hideyoshi and such. She was not in on the plan. It's kind of hard to pinpoint what Erika was truly thinking here at this point. And, well, what else? Alright, well, I think that I'm actually gonna stop it right here before this becomes even more insane. If I were to make it even more insane, because at this point I cannot say that I have any extra thoughts that I would like to express here. Like, maybe some new ideas are gonna come as time goes on, but I think this is a good time as any to end this segment over here and continue this. Like, the whole thing with Hideyoshi and every single idea that I said up to this point in this, they are there. But I'm still far away from actually seeing what happened and giving like a methodical reasoning for why Nazi is not the culprit and such. I am still far away from that. I cannot even explain the murders of the cousins and Genji and Rosa and such. I am still far away from that, so yeah, I guess so.